The pantry smelled of dust and metal, the kind of smell you get when every can of food feels like a countdown. I was on my knees, stacking and restacking 5 cans of beans as if turning them over could somehow multiply them. My stomach knotted with the sound of each can thudding against the shelf. That's all we had left for the week, and even that felt like a miracle. Then came the doorbell, long, sharp, unforgiving. My body froze. Through the window, headlights carved across the driveway, and I saw it. A tow truck idling, its hook already under the bumper of our only car. That car wasn't just metal. It was my last lifeline, the only way I could take job interviews, pick up groceries, drive my daughter to school. Now it sat under the beeping reverse alarm of the truck, like prey caught in the jaws of a machine. The front door opened before I could reach it. My father-in-law's voice boomed, deliberately loud for the Ring camera. Let it go. Leeches need to learn. His words sliced through me, leaving nothing but silence in their wake. Behind him, shadows moved. One by one, my wife's family filled the porch like spectators gathering for an execution. They hadn't come to help. They hadn't come to comfort. They had come to judge. Inside the living room, the confrontation unfolded like a staged performance. My wife stood in the center, her arms crossed tight over her chest, eyes red from hours of crying. She looked at me, then at them, torn in half. My mother-in-law leaned against the banister with her lips curled in a smirk. You lost your job. Again, she said, savoring the word again as if it proved every cruel suspicion she ever held. We carried you long enough. Carried me? The thought ripped through my chest. I remembered the 3 times I paid their HOA fees when they forgot. The summer I rebuilt their porch with my own hands, slivers in my skin, sweat soaking my shirt, just so they could host barbecues without shame. I thought about the small loans they never paid back, the emergencies that always seemed to happen right before their vacations. If anyone carried anyone, it wasn't them. But tonight, they held the stage. Then came the manila folder. My brother-in-law held it like it was scripture. He tossed it onto the coffee table and spread it open for all to see. Proof, he declared. Screenshots of text messages, half-truths twisted into lies. Old bills with my name circled in red. Bank statements stripped of context. Even private emails I didn't know they had access to. Every page was a weapon, painting me as a parasite who drained their perfect family. My daughter watched from the stairs, 8 years old. She hugged the banister like it was the only safe thing in the room. My chest collapsed at the thought of her hearing the word that had already been burned into me. Leech. The walls seemed to close in until another sound broke the tension. Tires crunching gravel. A second car pulling up. Black SUV, polished, quiet. The kind of car that didn't just arrive, it arrived with purpose. The tow truck driver paused, glancing toward it, uncertain. The family turned as the headlights cut across their faces. The SUV door opened and a man stepped out. He didn't rush. He didn't swagger. He just moved with a kind of calm that made everyone sit up straighter. Navy coat, sleeves rolled, no tie. He didn't look like a savior. He looked like a verdict. Evening, he said, his voice low, but steady enough to ripple through the porch. His eyes flicked up to the Ring camera, then to the open folder on the table. I'm here about the word leech and the lies stuffed in that folder. My father-in-law squared his shoulders, puffing out his chest like he still owned the room. Who are you? The man smiled, but it wasn't warm. It was sharp, controlled. He spoke with the kind of certainty that made even silence seem nervous. The person who just bought your debts. The tow truck's engine cut off. The driver pulled the hook back with a confused look, as though invisible orders had just been given. My heart slammed against my ribs. I didn't know him. I had never seen this man before. But when he stepped further into the light, I caught a flash in my wife's eyes. Not shock. Recognition. Her lips parted like she was about to say his name, but she stopped, glancing at me first. The room's balance shifted. The folder no longer looked powerful. The smirks on my in-laws' faces faltered, and for the first time that night, it felt like someone else was holding the script. The stranger's gaze swept over us like he'd been studying the play long before stepping on stage. He knew the lines. He knew the roles. And worse, he knew our names. That's when the truth hit me like ice down my spine. My wife knew him, and the way she was staring at him told me this wasn't just a passing recognition. It was something deeper, something dangerous, something that could break everything apart, and that was only the beginning. The dining room felt like a battlefield disguised as a kitchen. The old table, scratched from years of family dinners, now looked like a negotiation summit between enemies. My wife sat rigid beside me, her face pale and unreadable. My in-laws stood shoulder to shoulder, their confidence slipping but not yet gone. And then there was him, the stranger who had arrived in the black SUV, pulling out 3 thick envelopes and placing them on the table with a calm precision that made every eye follow the movement of his hands. "My name," he said slowly, his voice even but sharp, "is Ethan Vale." The name detonated in the room. Everyone in this town had heard it. Ethan Vale, the local boy who grew up with nothing, who turned a small coding project into an empire, who now owned half the strip mall downtown and had been rumored to donate millions under secret aliases. His name had floated through headlines and whispers alike. 8 figures in net worth, but no social media, no interviews, no appearances, just stories. And now he was standing in my dining room, staring across the table like he had been planning this moment for years. My heart thudded. Why us? Why now? He slid the first envelope toward me. The paper inside whispered as I pulled it free. "Your layoff wasn't random," he said. "The day before you were cut, your manager received an anonymous complaint, theft, anger issues, dangerous behavior. Enough to stain your record permanently." My hands trembled as I scanned the printed emails and digital trails. Then Ethan tapped a photograph clipped on top. A Wi-Fi router, familiar wallpaper behind it. "My sister-in-law's living room, the blood drained from my face. That's insane." She burst out, her voice too shrill, too fast. "Anyone could have used—" Ethan raised a finger, silencing her without raising his voice. "The same router filed a false welfare complaint about your child," he continued, his tone flat, almost surgical. "The same router posted a fake Yelp review that cost you your biggest client. All within days of each other. The timestamps don't lie. The paper trails don't vanish. Every knife in your back, every cut you didn't see coming, it all came from a house you trusted." The words hit me like bricks. I couldn't breathe. My wife's lips parted, but no sound came out. Her gaze darted between me, her sister, and the man with the evidence, as if her entire world was crumbling in front of her. My stomach twisted into something sharp and heavy. Ethan reached for the second envelope and pushed it toward my in-laws. "You say you carried him," he said, his voice dripping with contempt. "But this shows the opposite." My father-in-law snatched the papers, flipping through them with trembling fingers. The evidence was undeniable. Checks I had written. Bank transfers, each labeled with my own words, emergency bridge loan. Over and over again, money leaving my account to cover their debts, their temporary problems, their vacations disguised as emergencies. Not once had a cent returned. My wife turned to them, her voice breaking. You said he was draining us. You told me he never helped." My father-in-law slammed his hand against the table, making the envelopes jump. "You can't just barge in here with accusations." "Who do you think you are?" Ethan didn't flinch. He simply tapped the third envelope, sliding it across the table with quiet force. "This," he said, "is your house. Or rather, it was." Inside lay title transfer preliminaries, default notices, a deed of trust with signatures. Ethan's calm voice narrated the documents like a surgeon explaining a diagnosis. "You refinanced last year. Balloon payment due next week. You don't have it. So the bank takes the house. But you had a plan. You'd move into their home temporarily and stay forever. And to make sure he couldn't fight back, you labeled him a leech." The silence that followed was thick and poisonous. My wife's hand shook as she reached for the papers. "Mom, Dad, is this true?" Her mother's face twisted, caught between guilt and performance. For one long second, the truth flickered in her eyes. Then she switched tactics with the speed of a seasoned manipulator. Tears welled. Her lips trembled. She clutched at her chest. "Sweetheart, can't you see? He's manipulating you. He wants something from us. He's playing you." Ethan's eyes lifted to the mantel where our wedding photo hung, his expression unreadable. "She's right," he said quietly. "I do want something. I want what was stolen returned." "With interest," the words crackled in the air like a fuse burning toward dynamite. My chest pounded, fury and confusion tangling in every heartbeat. What could I have possibly taken from him? Ethan turned his gaze to me. His expression shifted, softer now, almost haunted. "We've met before," he said. The room froze. His eyes searched mine with a weight that made my skin prickle. "You saved me once, and you don't even remember." The floor seemed to tilt under me. I looked at my wife. She looked at him. And suddenly, I realized this night wasn't about debts or houses or false complaints. It was about something much bigger, something buried in the past that was about to rip open the present. The cliff edge had arrived, and below it I could see only darkness. The name sat heavy in the air, and before I could even piece together why Ethan Vale, millionaire, was standing in my dining room with my in-laws cornered like trapped animals. He leaned back in his chair, eyes fixed on me with something unsettlingly personal. "You saved me once," he said. The words clung to the walls, strange and impossible. My throat tightened. I searched his face, trying to dig through years of memories, but nothing surfaced. He saw my confusion and gave a small, humorless smile. "You don't remember, do you?" And then he painted the picture. 10 years ago. A winter night off I-95. I was driving home in my old Ford, heater rattling, pockets barely deep enough for gas money, when I'd stopped at a rundown station to grab coffee. That's when I saw him. A kid in a busted Civic, hood up, 2 tires flat, face pale with desperation. No wallet, just a rubber band holding a few scraps of paper. I remembered the way his breath smoked in the air, the way he was too proud to ask for help but too broken not to need it. And though I was broke myself, I had pulled 20 crumpled dollars from my pocket and pressed it into his hand. I'd given him my last travel mug of lukewarm coffee, too. "Pay it forward," I'd said, trying to sound casual, though my heart had been pounding with the risk of letting go of money I couldn't spare. It was something broke people tell themselves when they give away what little they have, that the world will remember them kindly, even if their wallet won't. Then I left, thinking I'd never see him again. But Ethan remembered. He never forgot. "Most people passed," he said now, his voice low, steady, almost reverent. "You didn't." He held my gaze until my chest began to burn. Fine, sweet. A nice story, sure. But what did that have to do with him storming into my house with files that made my in-laws squirm like guilty criminals? Why turn a favor into a war zone? I didn't understand. He leaned forward then, pulling another stack of papers from the first envelope. "After you lost your job, you posted online, didn't you? On Reddit. Ida for refusing to move in with my in-laws after I got laid off?" My stomach dropped. I had written that post in a moment of weakness, hoping anonymous strangers would give me some perspective. I never expected it to blow up. But Ethan's voice sharpened. It hit the front page. And I recognized the usernames, the ones who dogpiled you with cruel comments. They weren't strangers. They were your in-laws' friends. And one of them bragged in private messages about fixing your job problem. I blinked, not understanding. He didn't give me time to process. That same account submitted an anonymous complaint to your kid's school, an edited video designed to paint you as unfit, dangerous. They wanted leverage. They wanted custody in their back pocket. What they didn't know was that 2 years ago, I bought a cybersecurity firm. We monitor patterns, IP addresses, online fingerprints. Your name lit up in our system like a power line sparking in the rain. The room spun. I gripped the table as his words sank in. My in-laws' smug expressions were gone, replaced by pale tension and darting eyes. My wife covered her mouth with a trembling hand, whispering, No, not the school." But Ethan wasn't finished. His gaze snapped to her, softer now, though no less lethal. "There's more. Your parents set up an LLC in your name, without ever telling you. They funneled your grandmother's bequest through it, then drained it. $120,000 that was meant for your down payment, your future, your freedom. Gone." Her face went cold, the kind of cold that freezes a person before it melts them into tears. Her lips moved, but only one word came out, thin and shaking. "Mom?" The silence stretched until her mother finally looked up, her voice flat, almost rehearsed. "We were going to put it back." Ethan's hand slid across the table, dropping another sheet. LLC dissolution papers, quitclaim deeds, wire transfers leading straight into a Vegas account, dates stamped, notarized signatures, betrayal written in ink. My father-in-law's face turned the color of ash as he lunged for the papers, but Ethan didn't move. He didn't need to. The room itself shifted, heavy with the gravity of truth finally unearthed. Years of my swallowed pride, of biting my tongue, of carrying their insults, all rose like fire in my throat. I wanted to scream. to tear the lies out of their mouths. But my body stayed still, trembling with a fury too big for words. My mother-in-law hissed across the table, venom sharp in her tone. "Why are you doing this?" Ethan turned his head slowly toward me, then back to them. His voice was ice. "Because I owe him. And because I owe you nothing." He stood, sliding the envelopes back into his case. "Tomorrow, 9 a.m. downtown, bring a lawyer. Or don't. Either way, the truth walks in." The finality in his voice left no room for argument. He moved toward the door, his steps steady, deliberate. My wife's breath caught, her eyes wide and wild as if something long buried had just clawed its way to the surface. And then, just as Ethan's hand reached for the doorknob, she whispered words that detonated the entire room. "Ethan, are you my brother?" The silence after was suffocating. My chest collapsed inward, my ears roared, and in that instant I realized the night wasn't even close to over. The courthouse hallway smelled like burnt coffee and panic. The air buzzed with whispers, heels clicking on marble, the occasional slam of a file against a desk. My wife's hand trembled inside mine, her skin cold despite the heat rising in the room. Her parents walked ahead of us like two walls closing in, their backs stiff, shoulders squared, as if arrogance alone could shield them from the truth waiting inside. Ethan stood near the window, sunlight cutting across his face, a shadow carved from steel and secrets. He didn't look at us when we approached. He didn't need to. He owned the air. When the courtroom doors opened, it felt like stepping into a place designed to strip people bare. The wooden benches, the raised judge's seat, the quiet tension in every corner, it was a stage where lies came to die, or at least that's what I prayed. We took our seats. Papers shuffled. The bailiff called order. Then, with a single nod from the judge, Ethan began unraveling decades of buried treachery. He started with the adoption records. Files sealed for years cracked open like a jaw, wide and merciless. My wife gasped when she saw the documents. Her mother's maiden name typed in black ink, her signature scrawled across the page in a tight, furious hand. It was proof that long before she married my wife's father, she had given up a child. That child was Ethan. The courtroom fell into stunned silence. My wife stared at her mother, eyes wide, searching for anything. Denial, regret, explanation. But all she got was a flat voice, rehearsed, detached. "It was before your father. It's private. It's none of your business, but it was our business." It had been our business all along. Ethan didn't flinch. His face remained steady, his tone calm. "I'm not here to be your son," he said, words cutting the silence like glass. "I don't need a mother. I needed the truth. And he turned, pointing straight at me, needs his life back." The prosecution's case unfolded like a noose tightening with every word. False reports, forged emails, harassment dressed up as family concern, every detail laid out in black and white. The LLC siphon exposed, my wife's grandmother's inheritance swallowed whole, laundered through paper companies, dissolved, and spent. The plan revealed with chilling precision: move into our house under the guise of helping us, gain custody leverage over our child, bleed us dry for the children's sake. My father-in-law tried charm. He leaned forward, voice slick as oil, smiling like he was chatting with a neighbor over a fence. My mother-in-law tried tears, dabbing her eyes with a trembling hand, gasping for pity. My sister-in-law tried theatrics, fainting so dramatically the bailiff had to steady her. But none of it mattered. Paper does not cry, and the paper was against them. Dates, signatures, transfers, truth written in ink, undeniable and lethal. The judge listened, face carved from stone. When he finally raised the gavel, it didn't thunder. It clicked, soft, almost gentle, but more lethal than any shout. "Restraining order granted," he said. "Restitution recommended. Title on the defendant's home is frozen pending investigation. Protective order for the child's school is enacted immediately. Case referred for criminal charges." Each word was a hammer striking their empire of lies until it shattered into dust. Then my wife stood. My breath caught as she walked to the stand, her back straight, her eyes shining with something I hadn't seen in months: courage. She spoke in a voice that trembled at first, but steadied with every sentence. "I chose my husband," she said, looking directly at her parents. "I choose my family. Not the one that controls me. The one that cares." For the first time, she looked untethered, free. I felt my chest loosen as if I were breathing real air again. When it was over, We walked out of the courthouse lighter, though not yet free. Reporters gathered at the steps, cameras flashing, voices calling questions we weren't ready to answer. My wife clutched my arm as if letting go meant falling back into the pit we had just crawled out of. At the curb, Ethan waited. He handed me a single key card. Office space, he said simply. 12 months paid. No strings. Build whatever keeps your lights on. His voice carried no pity, no charity, only clarity. Then he handed me an envelope, thin but heavy with weight that was not paper, but meaning. From her, he added. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a letter written in crooked, stubborn handwriting I recognized instantly, my wife's grandmother. She had been gone for years, but her words felt alive. I meant this money for love, not leverage. If anyone steals it from you, go to the person whose name I wrote below. He knows debts. He knows family. He will fix it. The name written beneath, steady and deliberate. Ethan Vale. I stared at him, stunned, the weight of her foresight pressing against my chest. She had known. She had trusted. She had left a map straight to the man who now stood in front of us. And then, chaos. The courthouse doors behind us slammed open. Reporters surged. Cameras flashed. Cops pushed through the crowd, their hands gripping the arms of my father-in-law. He stumbled forward in handcuffs, his face twisted not in shame but in something far worse, delight. His laughter rang out across the marble steps, wild and jagged, cutting through the air like a blade. The sight of him laughing in chains froze me in place. My stomach twisted. My wife gasped. Even Ethan's jaw tightened. Because whatever joke my father-in-law thought he knew, it wasn't over. Not even close. He wasn't laughing at the cuffs. He was laughing at the last card he thought he held, the one ace he believed would shatter everything we had rebuilt in the past 48 hours. His eyes glinted with a kind of madness, a man who believed he had already outplayed the system, outplayed us, outplayed even the truth. "Checkmate!" he hissed, his voice oily and triumphant. The word slithered through the air, wrapping around my chest like a noose. You think you won? You forgot the prenup. You forgot the clause. His grin widened, teeth bared like a predator. If she divorces you while you're unemployed, you get nothing. She gets the house. I get the kid. You get beans. His laugh rattled against the courthouse steps, wild and jagged, and for a moment I felt the world tilt beneath me. The memory came back in fragments. The day of our wedding, the stack of sign here papers shoved across the table, the blur of champagne glasses clinking, the distraction of laughter, music, vows. I remembered signing without reading, trusting, because that's what you do when you're young and in love and surrounded by people you think are family. My stomach caved as the realization sank in. He had buried it then, hidden in plain sight, but my wife's face did not collapse. It closed, not at me, at him. She straightened, voice calm and terrifying in its steadiness. You forged that clause, she said, pulling her phone from her bag with a deliberate motion. Her eyes, hard and unflinching, never left his. You changed it after we signed. How do I know? Because we don't just have paper now, she tapped her screen. We have video. Ethan stepped forward, his presence like a blade cutting through the chaos. He nodded once, and suddenly the screen of my wife's phone lit up, mirrored on a nearby monitor. The courtroom gasped as the footage rolled. Our living room years earlier, the day of our wedding toast. My cousin laughing, recording on his phone, panning across the coffee table. A stack of documents clearly visible in the shot. Bottom right corners crisp, untouched, no clause in sight. Then, later that same evening, grainy footage from a different angle. My father-in-law, alone, hunched over the table, swapping the last page. He didn't see the nanny cam tucked inside the mantel clock, but he saw it now, in front of the DA, the judge, the reporters, the world. The laughter choked in his throat, replaced by a strangled silence. His face drained of color. The DA stepped forward, voice clipped and lethal. That's felonious document alteration. Sit down. The gavel struck once, sealing his fate tighter than any set of cuffs. But Ethan wasn't finished. He turned to me, his gaze sharp, his tone shifting into something that carried both weight and inevitability. One more thing, he said, pulling a thin, folded paper from his case. My pulse hammered as he unfolded it. I didn't come just to repay a 20. I came because of this. He held it out for the courtroom to see, an email chain from months back. The same chain that had cost me my job, the one supposedly sent from my account to a competitor, accidentally attached to my layoff file. Your manager thinks you leaked company data, Ethan said. But the metadata tells a different story. The sender cloned your phone. He reached into his pocket and slid a small burner device into my palm. We found the clone. Your sister-in-law activated it the night before the leak. Timeline, towers, done. The HR representative who had been observing the proceedings gasped audibly, clutching her notepad. We fired the wrong person, she whispered, her face pale. I didn't cry. I didn't breathe. I just nodded like a man whose life had been paved over, steamrolled into dust, and was now, brick by brick, being rebuilt into a road again. Then Ethan's gaze shifted to my wife. There's a trust, he said quietly, as though unveiling the final card. Your grandmother set it up, revocable until the day you turned 30. Your parents never told you because they planned to intercept it tonight, at midnight. He checked his watch, the second hand ticking with brutal precision. It's 11:58 p.m., legally speaking. My wife's voice shook. What happens at midnight? At midnight, Ethan said, his voice steady, final. It becomes irrevocable. In your name alone. And because of the judge's freeze on their accounts, they can't touch a cent. The first deposit hits at 12:01. Her mother broke then. The tears came fast, but not for us. Not for her daughter's pain. Not for the years of manipulation. She cried for the money slipping from her hands. For the empire of control disintegrating with every tick of the clock. The courthouse clock began to chime. 12, 11. Each toll like a hammer against the coffin of their schemes. My phone buzzed once, an email from HR, reinstatement plus wrongful termination settlement. Another buzz, payment received from a trust portal I had never seen before. Another, lease executed for the office keycard Ethan had given me. Midnight. Ethan exhaled, a sound like the closing of a chapter. He extended his hand. I shook it, my grip firm, my heart pounding with something I hadn't felt in years. Power. You didn't owe me this, I said, voice rough. He grinned then, finally showing teeth. Sure I did. You taught me what debt actually is. What's that? I asked. Not money, he replied, glancing at my in-laws as the patrol car door slammed shut. Memory. He turned, stepping toward his SUV. Then he paused, his voice carrying back over his shoulder. One last offer. Equity in a new venture. You build, I back. We hire folks like you, the ones the system threw away. We call it Leech, because we reclaim the word and make it mean survival. For the first time in months, I laughed. My wife laughed too, the sound bursting from her chest like a door finally swinging open. We walked home under a sky that looked suddenly expensive. The same cracked sidewalks, the same nosy neighbors, but everything felt altered. Behind us, blue lights washed the courthouse columns. Before us, the street stretched like a promise, not a miracle. A reckoning, not a millionaire saving us. A debt repaid, multiplied, and the last twist? 2 days later, a letter arrived from my wife's grandmother's attorney. Inside was a final note in her crooked, stubborn hand. If the family ever calls you a leech, smile. Leeches kept soldiers alive in the worst wars. They take poison so the heart can beat. Let them call you names, then build something they can never break. I framed it in the new office, above the door, so every person who walks in can read it and understand exactly what we survived. Fade out. The end you didn't see coming. The start we earned.